Hello everyone, I'm Damon McCann, head brewer here at Summit Brewing Company, here with a goblet of 3X Mild, entry number 4 in the Union series. So the Union series seeks to combine traditional recipes with modern ingredients. The idea is to take maybe an older recipe from the 19th century or early 20th century, combine that with new varieties of hops and malts, that's the Union, and see what comes of it. So with this beer right here, we took a recipe from about 1885 for a strong pale mild, using some modern malts like Expedition malting barley from Montana and a modern hop variety called 06300 from Hopsteiner. Brought those two together, we've come up with this beer right here. But the end result is a pretty hefty beer, weighs in at about 7.5%. We have to think of mild in the 19th century as being a lot stronger than the milds we'd see today. Mild back then really implied that the beer was served fairly young, fairly fresh, and fairly lightly hopped. Wasn't a whole lot of hop character in those milds of the 19th century. So traditionally in the 19th century, the strength of the beer was denoted by the number of X's either placed on the outside of a barrel or listed in the brewhouse sheets. We went with a 3X symbol. It kind of denotes the original gravity of the beer, which is around 1072, and the final alcohol, which is 7.5. But some of these milds went up to 4 and 5X strength. Some of them were as strong as 9.5%. So again, we're harking back to tradition with the 3X name, but trying to use some modern ingredients to kind of put a new spin and interpretation on that older style. So we kept the BUs down to about 35 in this beer. It's not a particularly hoppy beer, but that 06300 really imparts an interesting chocolate, vanilla, coconut type note to the beer. It's really, really unique. It's one of the more unique hops that we worked with here as part of the Union program. We also brought in a really interesting brewing sugar from the UK. Traditionally, British brewers would use a small amount of invert sugar of varying degrees of color and flavor as part of the overall grist, the overall recipe. So this beer has about 10% sugar in it. We brought in invert number 2, supplied by a traditional sugar manufacturer in the UK, and that imparts a kind of an interesting toffee note. There's almost a hint of treacle to this beer. So we brought it over in 25 kilo blocks, and we used about a half ton of sugar per brew. We did 2 brews of this beer. We basically tried to split the blocks up before we added them to the kettle. In the UK, you'd normally have a separate tank where you'd add the blocks, apply steam, and then melt the blocks of sugar into a liquid and then dose it into the kettle that way. We're not set up to do that here at Summit. We have a German brew house. We don't normally use a whole lot of adjuncts or sugars. So we decided to split the blocks up in advance and then literally drop them right into the kettle, depth charge style. A very unique type of sugar, pretty tough to come by. We had to call in a few favors from our friends across the pond, but I think it really adds to the overall flavor of the beer. Again, we're bringing in something that's fairly unique. You don't see a whole lot of invert sugar used by US craft brewers, but it's very important to have that element in there. It really adds to the flavor and a wee bit of the color. So another interesting element that you might want to look out for is a couple of casks of this beer, firkins and pins, were racked from 3 cognac barrels that we brought over from France during the summer. If you remember, in the 19th century, a lot of fermentation took place in wood. So using those cognac barrels really kind of replicates the Burton Unions that would have been used in the UK around that time, in Burton-on-Trent for fermenting beer. So we racked about 12 to 15 casks of the 3X that were fermented in those cognac barrels. So look for those out in the trade. I think fermenting in wood really adds an interesting flavor element. It just really adds to the complexity of the beer. So 3X will be available pretty much starting next week, the week of Thanksgiving, on draft, also available in 6-packs. Very limited in terms of availability. We only did 2 brews in the brew house. The yields and volumes overall were quite small. But feel free to put some of it away. Just as mild ales were aged for a period of time in the 19th century to basically create an old ale, feel free to put some of the 3X away. There is a small amount of yeast in the bottle. It will age really well over time. So put some away for 6 months, try it next spring, and see how your old ale is tasting then. The snowpack, back out here again, laddie. Don't we always do them in the snow? Hooligans and Gurriers. It's a nice colour, isn't it?
Yeah, it is beautiful.
Actually, that's very close to what I was aiming for, so I'm very happy with the colour. You never know working with new varieties of malt what exactly they're going to give you in terms of the hue.
Yeah.
You know, you've got an idea from your calculations what the colour is going to be, but you don't know the exact hue. It's the right beer for today anyway, laddie.
Yeah.
Oof.
All right.